Chapter 15, A Desperate Run. "But this can't be right," said Dune. "If the river is the way out of Ember, why is there just one boat? It's only big enough for two people." "I don't know," said Lena. "It is strange. Let's look around some more." They stood up. Dune went back to where they left the boxes and got another candle. He brought it into the boat room and lit it, and the room grew twice as bright. Right away, they saw that they hadn't noticed before. In the back wall was a door almost as wide as the whole room. When they went up to it, they could see that it too was a sliding door. Dune took hold of the handle that was on the right and pulled sideways, and the door rolled smoothly open to reveal more darkness. Sorry, handle, not candle. They stepped in. They could guess from the echoing sound of their voice when they spoke that they were in a tremendous room. Though the ceiling was low, they could see it just over their heads. The candlelight glinted off something shiny, and as they went in farther, they could see that the room was filled with boats, row upon row of them, all just like the one in the first room. "There must be hundreds," Lena whispered. "Enough for everyone, I suppose," said Dune. They wandered around a bit, but there wasn't really much to see. All the boats were the same. Each one contained 2 metal boxes and 2 paddles. The room was cold, and the air felt heavy in their lungs. The candle flames burned weakly, so they went back to the small room and slid the door closed behind them. "I guess," said Lena, that this first boat is meant as a sort of sample. We learn what's on the one that has signs: boat, paddles, candles, matches." They went back out to the river's edge. Lena blew out her candle and began closing up the boxes they'd opened. Dune blew his out too. "I'm going to take my candle with me," he said, "to look at later. I want some matches as well." He took a packet of matches from the box and tucked it inside his shirt. Lena returned the boxes to the boat room and slid the door closed. Then she and Dune stood together on the ledge and gazed down. Less than a foot below, the river rushed by. A short distance downstream, it plunged into the dark mouth in the wall and disappeared. "Well," he said, "we found it." "We found it," Lena repeated, wonderingly. "And tomorrow, at the start of the singing," said Dune, "we'll stand up in Harkin Square and tell the whole city." When they came up out of the pipeworks, it was nearly 6 o'clock. They hadn't realized that they'd been down there so long. Both Dune's father and Mrs. Murdo would be wondering where they were. They stood for a moment under a lamppost, just long enough to agree on a time to meet the next day and plan their announcement. Then they hurried home. When Dune's father asked why he was so late, he said his song rehearsal had gone long. He wanted to shout out to his father, "We found the way out! We're saved!" But he held himself in for the sake of his moment of glory. Tomorrow, when his father saw him on the steps of the gathering hall, he would be so overcome with surprise and pride that he would go weak in the knees, and the people standing next to him would have to catch him and hold him up. And the announcement about the thieving mayor, that would probably happen tomorrow too. Dune had almost forgotten in the excitement of finding the boats. The mayor's arrest and the city's rescue, both at once. It was going to be an amazing day. Racing thoughts kept Dune awake almost until morning. The day of the singing was a holiday for the entire city. All the stores and other businesses were closed. This meant that Dune didn't have to go to the pipeworks. His father didn't have to go to his shop either, and he was going to go anyhow. If he wasn't in his shop fussing with his merchandise, he didn't know what to do with himself. Dune dawdled over his breakfast of carrot sticks and mashed turnips, waiting for his father to go. He wanted to get ready for the journey down the river. They probably wouldn't leave for a few days. He and Lena would make their announcement tonight, and people would need time to get organized before they could leave the city. But he was too excited to sit around doing nothing. As soon as his father left, Dune slipped the case off his pillow. This would be his traveling pack. He put in the candle and the matches. He put in the key he'd borrowed from the pipeworks office. He put in a good-sized piece of rope that he'd found at the trash heaps and had been saving for years, and a bottle for water. He put an ancient folding knife in that his father had given him, which had come down through generations of his family, and which he used to chop off his bangs when they got so long that they tickled his eyelids. He put in some extra clothes in case he got wet, and some paper and pencil so that he could write a record of the journey. Along with these things, he crammed in a small blanket. It might be cold in the new city. And a packet of food, 6 carrots, a handful of vitamins, some peas and mushrooms wrapped in a lettuce leaf, 2 boiled beets, and 2 boiled turnips. That should be enough. Surely when they got to where they were going, the people who lived there would give them something to eat. He tied the top of the pillowcase in a knot, and then he untied it again. He might want to add something else. He stood in the middle of the apartment and looked around at the jumble of stuff. There was nothing else here that he wanted to take with him. No, there was one thing. He went back into his room. From beneath his bed, he pulled out the pages of his bug book. He leafed through it. The white spider, the moth with the zigzag pattern on its wings, the bee striped brown and yellow on its rear end. He looked at his drawings for a long time, memorizing their beauty and strangeness. Tiny fringes of hair, minute claws, jointed legs. Should he take this with him? There might not be creatures like this where they're going. He might never see such things again. But no, he'd leave it behind. His pack should be small and light. He put the bug book back under his bed and pulled out the box where he kept the green worm. He drew back the scarf to check his captive one more time. Several days before, the worm had done a curious thing. It had wrapped itself up in a blanket of threads. Since then, it had hung motionless from a bit of cabbage stem. Dune had been watching it carefully. Either it was dead or it was undergoing the change that he read about in a library book, but could hardly believe was true. The change from a crawling thing to a flying thing. So far, the bundled up worm had shown no signs of life. But now he saw that it was wriggling. The whole wrapped up bundle, which was shaped like a large vitamin pill, bent slightly from side to side, then was still, then bent back and forth again. Something was pushing at the top end of it, and in a moment the threads there split apart and a dark furry knob emerged. Dune watched, holding his breath. Next came 2 hair-like legs, which clawed and plucked at the blanket. In a few minutes, the whole creature was out. Egress, thought Dune with a smile. The creature's wings were crushed flat against its body at first, but soon they opened, and Dune saw what his green worm had become. A moth with light brown wings. He lifted the box and carried it to the window. He opened the window and held the box out into the air. The moth waved its feathery feelers and took a few steps along the wilted cabbage leaf. For several minutes it stood still, its wings trembling slightly. Then it fluttered up into the air, rising higher and higher until it was just a pale spot against the dark sky. Dune watched until the moth disappeared. He knew he had seen something marvelous. What was the power that had turned the worm into a moth? It was greater than any power the builders had had. He was sure of that. The power that ran the city of Ember was feeble by comparison, and about to run out. For a few minutes he stood by the window, looking out over the square and thinking again about what to pack for his journey. Should he put in anything like nails or wire? Would he need money? Should he take some soap? Then he laughed and struck a hand against his head. He kept forgetting that the entire population of the city would be with him on the trip. If he needed something he didn't have, someone would surely be able to supply it. So he tied a knot in his pillowcase and was about to close the window when he caught sight of 3 burly men wearing the red and brown uniform of the city guards striding into the square. They stopped and looked around for a moment. Then one of them confronted old humpbacked Nammy Proggs, who was standing not far from the entrance to the small items shop. The guard towered over her, and she twisted her head sideways and squinted up at him. Dune could hear the guard's voice clearly. "We're looking for a boy named Harrow." "Why?" said Nammy. "Spreading vicious rumors," was the answer. "Do you know where he is?" Nammy hesitated a moment, and then she said, "Went off to the trash heaps just a moment ago." The guard nodded curtly and beckoned to his companions, then marched away. Spreading vicious rumors? Dune was so stunned that he stood still as stone for a long minute. What could they possibly mean? But there was only one answer. It had to be what they told the assistant guard about the mayor. Why were they calling it a vicious rumor? It was the truth. He didn't understand it. He did understand, though, that Nammy Proggs had done him a favor. She must have seen that the guards meant him no good. She had protected him, at least for the moment, by sending the guards to the wrong place. Dune forced his mind to slow down and think. Why did the guards think he and Lena were lying? Obviously, they hadn't investigated the room in Tunnel 351. If they had, they'd have known he and Lena were telling the truth. He could think of only one other possibility. The guards, at least some of them, already knew what the mayor was doing. They knew about it and wanted it to stay a secret. And why? It was clear. The guards, too, were getting things from the storerooms. It had to be the answer. For a moment, the fear he'd felt when he saw the guards was replaced by rage. The familiar hot wave rose in him, and he wanted to grab a handful of his father's nails or pot shards and throw them against the wall. But all at once he remembered. If the guards were after him, they'd be after Lena, too. He had to warn her. He dashed down the stairs, his anger turning into power for his running feet. After discovering the room full of boats, Lena had come home to Mrs. Murdo's with the sound of the river still in her ears. It was like a huge, powerful voice, roaring at the top of its lungs. Deep inside herself, Lena felt an answering call, as if she too contained a drop of the same power. She would ride on the river, she could hardly believe it, and it might take her to the shining city she had dreamed of, or it might drown her. What she had imagined before, the smooth, gently sloping path leading out, now seemed childish. How could the way into a new world be so easy? She dreaded going on the river, but she was ready for it too. She longed to go. She slept that night in the beautiful blue-green room, in the big, lumpy bed with Poppy next to her. She felt safe here. Mrs. Murdo came in and tucked the covers around her. She sat on the edge of the bed and sang an odd little song to Poppy. Something about rockabye baby in the treetops. What are treetops? Lena asked, but Mrs. Murdo didn't know. It's a very old song, she said. It's probably nonsense words. She said goodnight and went out into the living room, where Lena could hear her humming quietly as she tidied up. She was so orderly. She never left her stockings draped over the back of a chair, or her sewing spread out all over the table. Lena closed her eyes and waited for sleep. But her thoughts kept tumbling around. So much was going to happen tomorrow. The whole city would be in an uproar. People would stream down into the pipeworks to see the boats. They'd be excited, shouting and laughing and crying, packing up their belongings and surging through the streets. If they couldn't all fit into the boats, there would be fights. Some people might get hurt. It was going to be a mess. She'd have to keep her little family close to her. Poppy, Mrs. Murdo, and Dune, and perhaps Dune's father and Clary. Through it all, she would hold tight to Poppy so no harm could come to her. It seemed she had barely closed her eyes when she felt Poppy's hard little heels banging against her shins. "Time to get up," Poppy chirped. She got out of bed and dressed herself and Poppy. In the kitchen, Mrs. Murdo was mashing potatoes for breakfast. How lovely, Lena thought, to have breakfast cooked for her, to hear water bubbling in the pot, and to find a bowl and a spoon set out on the table, and vitamins lined up neatly beside a cup of beet tea. I could live here forever, Lena thought, before she remembered that in a day or two they would all be leaving. There was a sudden banging on the front door. Mrs. Murdo dried her hands and went to answer it, but before she'd taken 3 steps, the banging came again. I'm coming, Mrs. Murdo cried, and when she opened the door, there was Dune. His face was flushed, and he was breathing hard. He had a bulging pillowcase slung over his shoulder. He looked past Mrs. Murdo to Lena. I have to talk to you, he said, right now. But he threw a doubtful glance at Mrs. Murdo. Lena scrambled up from the table. In here, she said, towing him toward the blue-green room. When she had closed the door, Dune told her what had happened. They'll come for you too, he said, any minute. We have to get out of here. We have to hide from them. Lena could hardly make sense of what he was saying. They were in trouble? Her legs went shaky at the knees. Hide, she said. Hide where? We could go to the school. No one would be there today. Or the library. It's almost always open, even on holidays. He hopped impatiently from foot to foot. But we have to go fast. We have to go now. They have signs up about us all over the city. Signs? Telling people to report us if they see us. Lena felt as if a swarm of insects was inside her head, buzzing so loudly she couldn't think. How long do we have to hide? All day? I don't know. We don't have time to think about it. Lena, they could be outside the door this minute. The urgency in his voice convinced her. On the way through the living room, she gave Poppy a quick kiss and called, "Bye, Mrs. Murdo. We have some emergency work to do. If anyone comes asking for me, say I'll be back later." They were down the stairs before Mrs. Murdo could ask any questions. Once in the street, they ran. "Where to?" Lena said. "The school," Dune answered. They took Greystone Street, staying within the shadows as much as they could. As they passed the shoe shop, Lena saw a white piece of paper stuck up on the window. She glanced at it and her heart gave a wild jump. Her name and Dune's were written on it in big black letters. Dune Harrow and Lena Mayfleet, wanted for spreading vicious rumors. If you see them, report to Mayor's chief guard. Believe nothing they say. Reward. She snatched the poster off the window, crumpled it up, and tossed it into the nearest trash can. In the next block, she tore down 2 more, and Dune ripped one off of a lamppost. But there were too many to get them all, and they didn't have time to waste. They ran faster. On this holiday, people slept late, and because the stores were closed, the streets were nearly empty. Still, they took the long route all the way out by the beehives to avoid Spark Swallow Square, where a few people might be standing around and talking. They ran past the greenhouses and up Deadlock Street. As they passed Knight Street, Lena glanced to her left. 2 blocks away, a couple of guards were crossing to Greengate Square. She tapped Dune's shoulder and pointed. He saw, and they ran faster. Had they been noticed? Lena thought not. They would have heard a shout if the guards had seen them. They got to the school and went in through the back door. In the wide hallway, their footsteps echoed on the wooden floor. It was strange to be here again, and to be here alone, without the clatter and chatter of other children. The hallway with its 8 doors seemed smaller to Lena than it had when she was a student, and shabbier. The planks of the floor were scuffed gray, and there was a cloud of finger smudges around the doorknob of every door. They went into Miss Thorne's room, and out of habit sat at their old desks. "I don't think they'll look for us here," said Dune. "If they do, we can crawl into the paper cabinet." He set his pack down next to him on the floor. For a while, they just sat there, getting their breath back. They hadn't turned the light on, so the room was dim. The only light came from beneath the blind over the window. "Those posters," Lena said after a while. "Yes, everyone will see them." "What will they do if they catch us?" "I don't know. Something to keep us from telling what we know? Put us in the prison room, maybe?" Lena ran her finger along the B carved in the desktop. It felt like a very long time since she'd last sat at this desk. "We can't hide in here forever," she said. "No," said Dune, "just until it's time for the singing. Then when everyone is gathered in Harkin Square, we'll go and tell about the boats and the mayor. Won't we? I haven't really thought about it. I haven't had a chance to think at all this morning." "But the guards are always there at the singing, standing next to the mayor," said Lena. "They'll grab us as soon as we open our mouths." Dune's eyebrows came together in a dark line. "You're right. So what will we do?" It was like finding yourself on a dead-end street, Lena thought. There was no way out. She stared blankly at the things that had once been her daily companions. The teacher's desk, the stacks of paper, the book of the city of Ember on its special shelf. The old words ran through her head. "There is no place but Ember. Ember is the only light in the dark world." She knew now that that wasn't true. There was someplace else, the place where the boats would take them. As if Dune had read her thoughts, he looked up. "We could go." "Go where?" she said, though she knew right away what he meant. "Wherever the river leads," he said. He gestured to the pillowcase sack. I packed up my bag this morning. I'm all ready. I'm sure I have enough for you too. Lena felt her heart shrink a little. Go by ourselves, she said, without telling anyone? We will tell them. Dune was on his feet now. He went to the cabinet and got a sheet of paper. We'll write a note explaining everything. A note to someone we trust. Someone who will believe us. But I can't just leave, said Lena. How could I leave Poppy and not even say goodbye to her? Not know where I'm going or if I'm ever coming back? How could you go without saying goodbye to your father? Because, said June, once they find the boats, the rest of Ember will follow us. It's not as if we're leaving them forever. He strode across the room and rummaged in Miss Thorne's desk. Who shall we write the message to? Lena wasn't so sure about this idea, but she couldn't at the moment think of a better one. So she said, we could write it to Clary. She's seen the instructions. She'll believe what we say. And she lives close by, just up in Torrick Square. Okay, said Dune. He pulled a pencil from the desk drawer. Really, he said, this is a perfect idea. We can get away from the guards and leave our message behind us. And we can be the first ones to arrive in the new city. We should be the first, because we discovered the way. Well, that's true, Lena thought for a minute. How long do you think it will take before the rest of them find the boats and come? It's a lot of people to get organized. She numbered on her fingers the things that would have to happen. Clary will have to get the head of the pipeworks to go down with her and find the boats. Then she'll have to make the announcement to the city. Then everyone in Ember will have to pack up their things, troop down to the river, get all those boats out of that big room, and load themselves in. It could be a big mess, Dune. Poppy will need me. She pictured frenzied crowds of people, and Poppy tiny and lost among them. Poppy has Mrs. Murdo, said Dune. She'll be fine. Really, Mrs. Murdo is very organized. It was true. The thought of taking Poppy with her on the river, which had darted into Lena's mind, darted out again. I'm only being selfish, she thought, to want to have her with me. It's too dangerous to take her. Mrs. Murdo will bring her in a day or two. This seemed the most sensible plan, though it made her so sad that it cast a shadow over the thrill of going to the new city. What if something goes wrong? She said. Nothing will go wrong. It's a good plan, Lena. We'll be there ahead of everyone else. We can welcome them when they come. We can show them around. Dune was bursting with eagerness. His eyes shone, and he jiggled up and down. Well, all right, Lena said. Let's write our message then. Dune wrote for a long time. When he was finished, he showed what he'd written to Lena. He'd explained how to find the rock with an E, how to go down to the boat room, even how to use the candles. It's good, she said. Now we have to deliver it. She paused a moment to see if she had any courage inside her. She found that she did, along with the sadness and fear and excitement. I'll deliver it, she said. I'm the messenger, after all. I know back ways to go, where no one will see me. An idea struck her. Dune, maybe Clary will be home. Maybe she would keep us safe and help us tell what we know. And we won't have to leave right now. Dune quickly shook his head. I doubt it, he said. She's probably with her singing group getting ready. You'll just have to leave the note under her door. Lena could tell from his tone of voice that Dune didn't really want Claire to be home. She supposed he had his heart set on their going down the river by themselves. Dune glanced up at the clock on the schoolroom wall. It's a little after 2, he said. The singing begins at 3. After that, everyone will be in Harkin Square and the streets will be empty. I think we can get to the pipeworks safely then. Why don't we leave about 3:15? You still have the key? Dune nodded. So after I've delivered the note to Clary, I'll come back here, said Lena. Yes, and then we'll wait until 3:15 and then we'll go. Lena got up from the cramped desk and went to the window. She moved the blind a little and peered out. There was no one in the street. The dusty schoolroom was very quiet. She thought about Dune's father, who would be frantic when he saw his son's name on those posters, and then realized later that Dune had disappeared. She thought about Mrs. Murdo, who might already have seen the posters, and who would be frightened if guards came looking for Lena, and terrified if Lena didn't come home by nightfall. She tried not to think about Poppy at all. She couldn't bear it. "Give me the note," she said to Dune at last. She folded the piece of paper carefully and put it in the pocket of her pants. "Back soon," she said, and went out of the room and down the hall to the rear door of the school. Dune went to the window to watch her go. He moved the blind aside just enough to see out into Pibb Street. There she was, running in that long-legged way, with her hair flying. She started across Stone Grit Lane. Just before she reached the other side, Dune's breath stopped in his throat. 2 guards rounded the corner from Knack Street, directly ahead of her. One of them was the chief guard. He leapt forward and shouted so loudly Dune could hear him plainly through the glass. "That's her! Get her!" Lena reversed her direction in an instant. She raced back down Pibb Street, turned down School Street toward Bilbolio Square, and vanished from Dune's sight. The guards ran after her, shouting. Dune watched, sick with horror. "She's much faster than they are," he told himself. "She'll lose them. She knows places to hide." He stood frozen next to the window, hardly breathing. "They won't catch her," he thought. "I'm sure they won't catch her." End of chapter 15. Whew, it's getting so good. Are you guys in suspense? Are you guys in suspense? I have to scroll way back up and chat. Oh my goodness. Let me grab a drink. Let me grab my breath. Just got murdered by Obi-Wan. I love Obi-Wan. He's one of my favorite characters. My brain is consumed by Star Wars currently. And I'm currently on the droid team, so I just feel awful blasting at Anakin and Obi-Wan. Oh no. Misty, Coco, James, welcome in. Happy Tuesday. How are you all doing? If you're still around. Here I am just saying things like, yes, murder me. Pull me to you with the Force. Love it. Love it. Wrong emote. Oh my gosh, what is that? Is that one of your emotes? It's so cute. Aw. I like it. I like it. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of hungry. I had a really good lunch, but for some reason I'm already hungry. Like, not even 2 hours later. I don't know what's wrong. But hopefully, I'll wait. I'll eat after. But otherwise, I'm doing pretty good. Today feels very much like a Monday. Does not feel like a Tuesday. But happy Tuesday. I'm so sleepy. I just took an almost hour-long nap. I'm so sleepy too. I just keep yawning. Like, if there's ever like a kind of long pause in my reading, just know I'm probably yawning. I'm probably yawning. I need a good yawn right now, actually. Good thing you didn't see me. I hope you didn't yawn with me. Manifest jump scare Puffy, welcome in. Happy Tuesday. Welcome on in. You were busy gaming. I switched games so I could be more focused. Aw. Gotta mess with laundry. Good luck with laundry. I know I need to do some soon too, and it feels like I just did some. Like I just did some this weekend, and I already have almost like a full basket to do again. It's never ending. It's never ending. Claps for chapter. Let's go. It's giving me the Vapors. What is the Vapors? Is that another book or is that a game? He is my favorite. Obi-Wan, I love him. He and I also share the same personality type. I love that. I should redo my emotes, but thank you for the compliment. I've done 2 projects that took me a total of 9 hours in the past few days. Wow. That is a lot. That is a lot. I'm having some chocolate. Oh, I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I want some chocolate. We also share a personality type. Love it. Love it. I'm trying to get my reading done today before 1 a.m. Coco. Oh my goodness. Get it done. Get it done before 1 a.m. Sleep is important too. I didn't sleep during college. I see, for me in college, I had so much extra time because I got all my stuff done and out of the way. And I was like, I have all this extra time. What do I do with myself? And then I joined a sorority and had absolutely no extra time after that. No extra time after that. We did talk about that in my stream, I think. We did. Monday I got 4 hours. Today I was trying to sleep until 9, but some maintenance people woke me up at 7:30. It's a saying? Wait, it's a saying? Wait, what's the saying? I already forgot. Oh, the vapors. Wait. It's a saying? The game of vapors. Wait, I'm confused now. I'm confused now. I hate laundry. I don't mind doing laundry. It's the folding and putting away that's just, ugh. It's just, ugh. I never had any free time. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why I had so much free time. Me last semester, and then I got out of gen eds, so it was always consumed by classwork and studying. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I remember my time in a sorority. The wig only got me so far, Misty. Sorority was a lot of work. I'll say being in a sorority was probably more work than college was. Not gonna lie. It was a lot of work. Eric, hello. Welcome in. Happy Tuesday. How are you doing? I always had tons of reading. That's fair. That's fair. I think that was a lot. You know what? I think the reading, I also had a lot of reading in college. And I think that's the only reason I napped in college. College was the only time I ever napped because the reading made me so tired. And I was just, maybe because I was always busy and I fell asleep. I don't know. I think the vapors is akin to like smelling salts. I have never heard that saying either. Not gonna lie. I'm doing well. I'm so glad. Happy to have you here today. Probably a Southern thing, maybe. Don't even get me started on the folding. Oh, see, I don't know. What's worse though, folding or putting it away? I hate folding laundry. I feel it, I don't know. Because when it's all folded, the last thing you have to do is put it away. But then it's like, well, I've already gone this far. You know, like I have to do it all at once or else it just won't get done. It's like all, you know, laundry day is do laundry, fold it, put it away all in one go or else I won't do it. The laundry just sits there in baskets. I always put it off. I was a perfectionist and obsessed with keeping my 4.0. Oh yeah, I did not have a 4.0. I want to say I had a 3.7. So I was close. I think the vapors is like dizziness or fainting, but it was attributed to women like PMS. Oh, really? I was not in Greek life because that is not me. Honestly, Paige, the only reason I did it is because I had free time. Literally. And my roommate was like, why not? And so we did it together. But like, honestly, it helped me come out of my shell and be more social. And it helped me, you know, make friends. But Greek life specifically, probably not my thing still. I could never sorority. To be fair, my sorority, I feel like it was not like, it's not like you see in the movies. You know, it's not, I mean, some of it is. Like there is like the drinking and the parties and stuff like that. But like, it's not all like preppy and like girls, you know, having sleepover. Like, it's not like that. It's not like that at all. We had like study time. We did fundraisers. We did like community service. We did all kinds of stuff. We did all kinds of stuff. Maybe smelling salts were the solution to the vapors. Maybe. I started doing audiobooks in college. Ooh, that's interesting. I still am not really an audiobook type of person. I like to actually like read a physical book. I know the phrase the vapors fairly well, so I guess it's Southern. Maybe. It must be. My mother-in-law was Phi Mu, I think. Ooh, okay, okay. I'm not going to say which sorority I belong to because it would probably dox me. So I'm not going to say what I am, but I hate putting the stuff on hangers away. Everything else is fine. So I have to say I hate folding more. Yeah, I like to hang stuff too. I like if I could hang everything, I would. If I could hang everything, I would. But I do like half and half. Was that my sister-in-law? I don't know if they're all the same to me. I think the vapors is a Southern thing. It very well could be. I thought you would get the vapors because someone was about to pass out. Oh, so that's kind of like what it is you like almost pass out. You don't strike me as a sorority type, but I'm glad it was helpful for you. Yeah, I mean, like I don't regret it in any way. And I still do talk to some of my sisters and brothers. Not so much anymore. It's been a whole decade, but like, we're all like we've all gone to like people's like weddings and like we've still seen each other. So it was fun, I liked it. But it definitely took up all of my time. I always throw my laundry on my bed so that I have to get it done before bed. Me too, Summer, me too. I fold the laundry on the bed so that you cannot go to bed until laundry is done. Because it never takes as long as I think. Exactly. Exactly. I have to fold my laundry right away or it gets wrinkled. Oh, yeah. Yep. See, Matt can't do wrinkled clothes, so we always do it right away too. The sorority girls at my school were really dumb and irritating. Aw. Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just different depending on like where you go. I went to a liberal arts school, so everyone was very like not everyone, but like a lot of people were very like hippie, kind of like backwoods, like everyone was nice though. Everyone was really nice. So no pillow fights? No. No. Nope. We did actually have a sleepover, but that was part of like pledging. That wasn't because we wanted to, I'm gonna be honest, mine are the same. I took understanding dance as my low-level fine arts gen ed credit, and I loved it because I did ballet. It was basically just an introduction to dance history with a heavy focus on ballet. Oh, that's so fun. She would give us pop quizzes. Oh, that's so cool. I did, our school had a dance company. It was like, it wasn't a class. It was, extra. You did it on your own time, but I did that, which was really fun. And we did like recitals every spring and fall. As long as you paid attention in class and took decent notes, the quizzes were incredibly easy. And she gave us like 5 minutes at the beginning of class to study all before we had the quiz. Yeah, I loved professors who did that, or teachers. And yeah, every time all the sorority girls, which was the majority of the class, always complained about how hard the quizzes were and would like fail. Aw. That sucks. I know I throw my laundry on the bed and then end up pushing them onto the floor. I was like, are you kidding? This is the easiest class I've ever taken. All you have to do is pay attention. Yeah. Sleepover, scary stories, and marshmallows. I wish it was like that. No, we had to, there were rules we had to follow as pledges. Pledging, I've blacked out a lot of pledging. I don't remember most of it at this point because it's not something you really want to remember. There was nothing like, we weren't hazed, we weren't bullied, there was nothing like that. It's just, it was stuff that was not pleasant. I will say that. I wish we had a company that was open to non-majors, but it wasn't. Our school of dance is very competitive because it's one of the top in the nation. Oh, that's so cool. I got 100 in that class. It was not hard at all. That's how I was near the top of the class at the college biology class I took. Most of the class didn't pay attention or study at all. No hazing was the point. So my sorority didn't do hazing. I'm not saying the other ones didn't. Sorry, Satan. My sorority did. And like, you know, hazing is a very broad term. So some of the stuff we did could technically probably be considered hazing, but we're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into that. But there was always rumors that the other sororities did. You know, like you never know. You never know. My roommate was hazed. He just had to run through the hall in a tutu. That's not that bad. That's not that bad. Jump scare Puffy. Oh, I turned them off today. I remembered to turn them off today. Not even like it really matters. Not even that it matters because we have the nose and the lols, you know. So I feel like it doesn't even matter that I turn those off. I didn't know that I could have taken biology. I suck at science. I love science. Science, math, and art were my favorites. I was very lucky in my one required science class that I took. Aw. All right, I'm going to grab a drink, and then we're going to get back to our reading since we took a little chat break. But now that I'm caught up, I think it's time to start the next chapter. And we can continue our chats. Okay. So, because we still have quite a bit more reading to do. So, chapter 16, the singing. When Lena heard the guards shout, terror shot through her. She ran faster than she ever had before, her heart pounding wildly. Behind her, the guards kept up their shouting, and she knew that if the other guards were nearby, they would come running. She had to find a hiding place. Ahead of her was Bilbolio Square. Was there a spot she could duck into? And like an answer, Dune's words came back to her. The library. It's almost always open, even on holidays. She didn't have time to think. She didn't ask herself whether Edward Pocket would be willing to hide her, or whether there would even be a good hiding place in the library. She just ran for the passageway that led to the library door and darted down it. But the library door wouldn't open. She turned the knob frantically. She pushed and pulled, and then, at the same time that she heard the running footsteps of the guards coming into the square, she saw the small handwritten sign stuck to the door. Closed for the singing. The guards were very near now. If she ran, they would see her. She flattened herself against the wall, hoping they wouldn't think to look in the library passage. But they did. Here she is, yelled one of the guards. She tried to push past them, but the passage was too narrow, and he caught her by the arm. She pulled and twisted and kicked, but the chief guard had her now too. He gripped her other arm with fingers that felt like iron. Stop your struggling, he shouted. Lena reached up and grabbed a handful of his wiry beard. She pulled with all her might, and the chief guard roared, but he didn't let go. He yanked her forward, almost off the ground, and the two guards dragged her across the square at an awkward, lopsided pace that made her stumble over her own feet. You're hurting me, Lena said. Don't hold so tight. Don't you tell us what to do, said the chief guard. We'll hold you tight till we get you where you're going. Where is that? Said Lena. She was so enraged at her bad luck that she almost forgot to be afraid. You're going to see the mayor, missy, said the chief guard. He'll decide what to do with you. But I haven't done anything wrong. Spreading vicious rumors, said the guard, telling dangerous lies calculated to cause civic unrest. It's not a lie, she said, but the guard gripped her arm even more tightly and gave her a shove so she stumbled sideways. No talking, he said, and they walked the rest of the way in grim silence. A few people had already gathered in Harkin Square, though the workers were still getting it ready for the singing. Street sweepers crossed the square back and forth, pushing their brooms. Someone appeared at a second-floor window of a building on Gilly Street and unfurled one of the banners that was always displayed for the singing. A long piece of red cloth, faded after years of use, but still showing its design of wavy lines, representing the river, the source of all power. That was for the Song of the River. There would be a banner on the Broad Street side of the square, too. This one deep yellow gold, with a design like a grid to represent the Song of the City. And another banner on the Otterville side for the Song of Darkness, perfectly black except for a narrow yellow edge. The guards marched Lena up the steps of the gathering hall and through the wide doorway. They took her down the main corridor, opened the door at the end, and gave her one last push, a push that caused her to stagger forward in an undignified way and bump up against the back of a chair. It was the same room that she'd been in that other, much happier day, her first day as a messenger. Nothing had changed. The frayed red curtains, the armchairs with the upholstery worn thin, the hideous mud-colored carpet. The portraits on the wall looked down at her sorrowfully. "Sit there," said the chief guard. He pointed at a small, hard-looking chair that faced the large armchair. Lena sat. Next to the chair was the small table she remembered from before, with the china teapot and a tray of china teacups with chips around their edges. The chief guard left the room, to find the mayor, Lena supposed. The other one stood silently with his arms folded across his chest. Nothing happened for a while. Lena tried to think about what she would say to the mayor, but her mind wouldn't work. Then the door to the front hall opened, and the mayor came in. It was the first time Lena had seen him up close since she had delivered Looper's message to him. He seemed even more immense. His baggy face was the color of a mushroom. He wore a black suit that stretched only far enough across his vast belly for one button to connect with its buttonhole. He moved ponderously across the room and settled into the armchair, filling it completely. Next to his chair was a table, and on the table was a brass bell the size of a fist. The mayor gazed for a moment at Lena with eyes that looked like the openings of tunnels, and then he turned to the guard. "Dismissed," he said, waving the back of his hand at him. "Return when I ring the bell." The guard left. The mayor swung his gaze back to Lena. "I am not surprised," he said. He lifted one arm and pointed a finger at Lena's face. "You have been in trouble before, going where you shouldn't." Lena started to speak, but the mayor held up his hand. It was an oddly small hand, with short fingers like ripe pea pods. "Curiosity," said the mayor, "a dangerous quality, unhealthy, especially regrettable in one so young." "I'm 12, said Lena. "Silence," said the mayor. "I'm speaking." He wriggled slightly from side to side, wedging himself more firmly into the chair. He'll need to be pried out of it, Lena thought. "Ember, as you know," the mayor went on, "is in a time of difficulty. Extraordinary measures are necessary. This is a time when citizens should be most loyal, most law-abiding, for the good of all." Lena said nothing. She watched how the flesh under the mayor's chin bulged in and out as he spoke. And then she turned her eyes from his unpleasant sight and looked carefully around the room. She was thinking now, calculating, but not about what the mayor was saying. "The duties of a mayor," said the mayor, "are complex, cannot be understood by regular citizens, particularly children. That is why," he went on, leaning slightly forward so that his stomach pushed farther out along his lap, "certain things must remain hidden from the public. The public would not understand. The public must have faith," said the mayor, once again holding up his hand, this time with a finger pointing toward the ceiling. "That all this is being done for their benefit, for their own good." "Hogwash," said Lena. The mayor jerked backward. His eyebrows came down over his eyes, making them into dark slits. "What?" he said. "Surely I heard you incorrectly." "I said hogwash," said Lena. "It means—" "Do not presume to tell me what it means," the mayor cried. "Impudence will make things worse for you." He was breathing heavily, and his words came out with spaces between them. A misguided child, such as yourself, requires a forceful lesson. His short fingers gripped the arms of the chair. Perhaps, he said, your curiosity has led you to wonder about the prison room. What could it be like, huh? Dark, cold, uncomfortable. He made the smile that Lena remembered from assignment day. His lips pulled away from his small teeth, his gray cheeks folded. You will have a chance to find out. You will become closely acquainted with the prison room. The guards will escort you there. Your accomplice, another known troublemaker, will join you as soon as he is located. The mayor turned to look for the bell. This was the moment when Lena had planned to make a dash for freedom. She thought she had a slim chance to succeed if she moved fast enough. But something happened in that instant that gave her a head start. The lights went out. There was no flicker this time, just sudden, complete darkness. It was fortunate that Lena had already planned her move and knew exactly which way to go. She leapt up, knocking over her chair. With her arm, she made a wide swipe and knocked over the table next to the chair as well. The furniture thumping to the floor, the teapot shattering, and the mayor's enraged shouts made a clamor that covered the sound of her footsteps as she dashed to the stairway door. Was it unlocked? She reached for the knob. Grunts and squeaks told her that the mayor was struggling to rise from his chair. She turned the knob and pulled. The door sprang open. She closed the door behind her and leapt upwards 2 steps at a time. Even in the pitch dark, she could climb stairs. In the room, the bell clanged and the mayor bellowed. When she got to the first landing, she heard the guards shouting. There was a crash. Someone must have fallen over the toppled chair or table. Where is she? Someone yelled. Must have run out the door. Did they know which door? She didn't hear footsteps behind her. If she could make it to the roof, and if from the roof she could jump to the roof of the prison room, and from there to the street, then maybe she could escape. Her lungs were on fire now. Her breath was burning her throat, but she climbed without stopping, and when she came to the top, she burst through the door to the roof and ran out. And that was when the lights came back on. It was as if the blackout had been arranged especially for her. I am so lucky, she thought, so extremely lucky. Ahead of her was the clock tower. She went around to the other side of it. No dancing on the roof this time. A low wall ran along the edges of the building. Lena approached it cautiously and peered out over the swarm of people assembling in Harkin Square. Directly below her was the entrance of the gathering hall, and as she watched, 2 guards dashed out the door and down the steps. Good, they had gone the wrong way. They must think she'd escaped into the crowd. For the moment, she was safe. The clock in the tower began to chime. 3 great booms rang out. It was time for the singing to begin. Lena gazed down at the people of Ember, gathered to sing their songs. They stood so close together that she could see only their faces, which were lifted up towards the sky, with the hard, bright lights shining down on them. They were silent, waiting for the songmaster to appear on the gathering hall steps. There was a strange hush, as if the city were holding its breath. Of the whole Ember year, Lena thought, this hush before the singing was one of the most exciting moments. She remembered other years when she had stood with her parents, too short to see the songmaster's signal, too short to see anything but people's backs and legs, and waited for the first note to thunder out. She felt her heart move at that moment every year. The sound would rise in waves around her like water, almost as if it could lift her off the ground. Now suddenly the moment came again. From hundreds of voices rose the first notes of the song of the city, deep and strong. She felt as she had all those years before, a quivering inside, as though a string under her ribs had been plucked, and a rush of joy and sadness mixed together. The deep, rumbling chords of the song filled Harkin Square. Lena felt that she might step off the edge of the building and walk across the air. It seemed so solid with sound. The song of the city was long. There were verses about streets of light and walls of stone, about citizens with sturdy hearts, about stored abundance never ending. Not true, Lena thought. But at last, the song of the city wound down to its end. The singers held the final note, which grew softer and softer, and then there was silence again. Lena looked out at the lighted streets spreading away in every direction, the streets she knew so well. She loved her city, worn out and crumbling though it was. She looked up at the clock, 10 minutes after 3. Dune would be getting ready to leave for the pipeworks. She didn't know whether he'd seen her being captured. If he had, he would be wondering if she'd been locked in the prison room. He'd be wondering if he should try to rescue her, or if he should go down the river by himself. She should be hurrying to join him, but a sadness held her back, like a heavy stone in her chest. She bent her face into the palms of her hands and pressed hard against her closed eyes. How could she go away from Ember and leave Poppy behind? Because if she went, she must leave Poppy behind, mustn't she? How could she take her on a journey of such danger? The song of the river startled her when it began. The men's voices, low and rolling, swelled with power, and then the women's voices coming in above with a complicated melody that seemed to fight the current. Lena listened, unable to move. The song of the river made her uneasy. It always had. With its rolling, relentless rhythm, it seemed to urge her onward, saying, "Go down, go away, go now." The more she listened, the more she felt something like motion of the river in her stomach, a churning, sickening feeling. Then came the song of darkness, the last of the 3 songs, and the one most filled with longing and majesty. The soul of Ember was in this song. Its tremendous chords held all the sorrow and all the strength of the people in the city. The song reached its climax. Darkness, like an endless night, sang the hundreds of voices so powerfully the air seemed to shiver. And at that moment, the lights once more went out. The voices faltered, but only for an instant. Then they rose again in the darkness, stronger even than before. Lena sang too. She stood up and sang with all her might into the deep, solid blackness. The last notes echoed and faded into a terrible silence. Lena stood utterly still. Will it end like this, she thought, at the finish of the last song? She felt the cold stone of the clock tower behind her back. She waited. Then an idea came to her that made her skin prickle. What if she were to shout into the silence right now? What if she were to say, "Listen, people, we've found the way out of Ember. It's the river. We go on the river." She could announce the astounding news, just as she and Dune had planned to do. And then what would happen? Would the guards rush to the roof and seize her? Would the people in the square think her news was just a child's wishful thinking? Or would they listen and be saved? She could feel the words pushing upward in her throat. She wanted so badly to say them. She took a deep breath and leaned forward. But before she could speak, a rumble of voices arose below. Someone shouted, "Don't move!" and someone else shrieked. The rumble rose to a roar, and then cries flew into the darkness from everywhere. The crowd was erupting into a panic. There was no hope of being heard now. Lena clutched the edge of the clock tower as if the tumult below would cause her to fall. She strained her eyes against the darkness. Without light, she could go nowhere. "Lights, come back on," she prayed. "Come back on." Then she saw something. At first, she thought her eyes were tricking her. She closed them tightly and opened them again. It was still there, a tiny point of light moving. As she watched, it moved along slowly in a straight line. Then it turned and moved in a straight line again. Was it on River Road? She couldn't tell. But suddenly she knew what it was. It was Dune with a candle. Dune going toward the pipeworks in the dark. And she wanted to go too. She could feel it all through her, the urge to run and meet him and find the way out of Ember, to the new place. She listened to the shouts and wails of the terrified people in the square below. She thought of Mrs. Murdo down there in the dark, being bumped and pushed with her arms wrapped tightly around Poppy, trying to protect her. And all at once, everything seemed clear. Lena knew what she would do. If only the lights would come back on. If only this was not the very last blackout in the history of Ember. Watching the tiny light following its steady course, she made a wish with the whole force of her heart and mind. Then the floodlights flickered. There was a great cry of hope from the crowd, and the lights came on and stayed on. Lena ran to the back edge of the roof, dropped easily down onto the roof of the prison room, and, seeing no guards in the crowd that was now streaming into the street, she jumped from there to the ground and joined the throng of people. She made her way down Greystone Street, going at the same pace as everyone else so she wouldn't stand out. When she came to the trash can enclosure behind the gathering hall, she squatted down and hid. Her heart was beating fast, but she felt strong and purposeful now. She had her plan. As soon as she spotted Mrs. Murdo and Poppy on their way home, she put it into action. End of chapter 16. All right. Let's see. I know there was ads within that chapter. I apologize. If it was only a few seconds, I probably would have paused, but I didn't want to just pause and be in silence for 3 minutes, so I do apologize. But thank you for sitting through the ads. Let me see where I left off in chat. I suck at science too, but it was a dual enrolled class because I needed the high school credit. Oh, those were fun when it was like 2 classes, like half the year and the other half. And GA loves Star Wars and put a very important question on a quiz that was not for extra credit. And I was like, yes, this is my kind of dude. That's awesome. I hadn't decided to not do college. Question was, who shot first, Han or Greedo? Ooh, I wouldn't know. I would not know. I would not know. You could get credit for high school at college. Yeah, we could if we took like an AP class. It would count towards college, I think. I could be wrong. Ours was only the opposite. Also, Tara making an appearance in the book. He's famous. He's made an appearance a couple times in the book. Always like shooting through people. I'll have you know, I got that Star Wars question correct. Heck yes. I was in high school and I took the class, so I got the high school credit and college credit. Oh, cool. Oh, that's cool. I did dual enrollment in high school, but it didn't count towards high school other than filling my schedule out. Oh, dual enrollment. Interesting. Just got credit for college. Interesting. I was able to take less at my high school my senior year because I had mostly finished my credits there. So that's how I started Japanese early. Oh, neat. At least I don't think it counted toward anything for high school. Maybe I'm too old and don't remember. I know. I feel that. My memory is terrible now. It used to be so good. I just remember the only thing left that I was required to take for high school was math. And then the other 3 classes I took there was technically electives, orchestra, AP Euro, and something else. I don't remember. Maybe it was reading for pleasure. I can't remember if I took it junior or senior year. Oh, it was a half and half. Only required credits were senior math and senior English. So I had math, English, orchestra, and AP Euro. Nice. Then took Japanese at the university. It was a good schedule that year. That was so long ago. Aw. The weird amounts, kinds of credits needed. Oh my gosh, I know. Like, I remember was it college? I want to say it was college. And my like, it wasn't my guidance counselor, but like my professor who would like give me like advice and stuff about like your credits and like what to do for your next year. They messed up my like credit count. So I actually was missing credits that I needed to graduate. And I think I was like a junior or senior. So I was like, hello, like I need to do this now. So I ended up having to take a summer course, and because I tested out of having to take a language because they tested you at the beginning to see if you needed to. And my score was good enough where I didn't need to. So to fill up the credits, I took a language anyway, and one that I had already taken and knew pretty well. So I got like more than 100% in the class. So I was like, perfect, easy credits. I feel like it was forever ago for me too, and there's several years between us. Aw. I know, it's already been a decade since I graduated college. Like, that just sounds so crazy to think now. I think I was required to take a certain amount of hours at my high school for that year, but I only had those 2 course credits left, so the rest of the stuff was more or less filler. But I always did orchestra, and AP Euro was incredibly fun with arguably the best teacher at the school. That's so awesome. Claps for chapter. Thank you. I think it was only 30 seconds for me. Usually, can you run ads between chapters so it doesn't play by itself? So if I manually run ads, it will still run the ads on the hour. So I think it depends on when you come in, because every hour there are 3 minutes of ads. And when you come in, you get 30 seconds. Is 30 seconds or 15 seconds? You get like a small little baby bit of ads, I think, when you first come in. Twitch has like changed their ads thing so much that I don't even know anymore. But I have discovered that if I manually run ads when I take a break, the hourly ads still run. So then you guys would get double the ads. So I'm not really sure how to like do it in the best way, you know? I don't understand Twitch anymore. Exactly. Exactly. I didn't get any ads. Heating up my leftovers because I'm hungry. Coco, I'm hungry too. I'm hungry too. I also have leftovers, but now it's like too late for a snack and too early for dinner. They only play on mobile for me. Interesting. Well, Coco, you are subbed currently, so you will not get the ads. For me, anyway. For me. Spoiler, it was Han. I'm on mobile. I'm trying to think, because I get ours is weird. Like, we're logged in on my phone, I'm logged into my Twitch, and on the TV, we're logged into Matt's Twitch. So our subs are like different, you know, depending on what we watch on. The guidance counselor shouldn't have their job. I know. Well, she wasn't even really a guidance counselor. She was one of my professors, but every student gets like a professor to go to like talk about their schedule, and it's usually a professor within their major. So mine was one of my art professors. Like a CLEP test? I have no idea what that is. Are you talking about the test to see if you could like test out of the language? Is that what you're talking about? I always figured that stuff out by myself because the advisors weren't great until like my senior year. So I just learned to rely on myself for figuring out credits. I think I took a CLEP test for math, and I don't know that I did well enough to get out of it. Oh, yeah, I think so. We had one to see which math class we would be in, but there was also a test to see if you needed to take a language or not. But the language was optional, whereas the math, you had to take whatever like met your level. So an advisor. Yes, an advisor. Thank you, Coco. Perfect word that I just could not think of. No such thing as too late for a snack. I like your thinking. For PC, the computer usually blocks them for me. Oh, sometimes an ad blocker thing. Yeah, okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. I have an ad blocker, so maybe that's... Ooh, maybe I should turn on my ad blocker. I'm trying to think if I get ads on PC or not. I don't even know. I barely ever watch Twitch on my PC. I'm usually on mobile, so it depends. We had advisors, but they weren't professors. Oh. That's how mine is. I have my English professor as my advisor. Yeah. Okay. Our university was the biggest state school, though, so each college has its own advisors. That was their entire job. Oh, yeah, ours were actual professors. I don't think we had CLEP tests for language. Wasn't optional for us. Interesting. No, math is bad. I took a test for math, and then later my advisor said you don't need math, but I wanted to take calculus. Interesting. I like math. I liked math. I don't think I had to take math my senior year of high school or college. I'm pretty sure I actually only had to take one math class in college, if I remember right, because like I think I tested to the point where I was like, Luna, what are you doing? Luna, what are you doing? I don't know what Luna's doing. Being mischievous. She's on a chair behind me, so I can't see her. I took stats in high school, though. So in high school, we had freshman year was algebra. Sophomore year was geometry. Junior year was, I took pre-calc because it was like it wasn't an AP class, but it was like a math like plus class. It was like I don't even know, but I took it. Geometry was fun. I actually liked pre-calc. It was just called like advanced math because I liked it. I liked math that much. I loved stats so much. I never took a stats class, but my roommate in college did because her major had to do with like marketing and stuff. So she had to take it. And it just sounded, not gonna lie, it sounded so boring. The advisors sucked for me when I was a freshman, when you got a general advisor and in professional writing. It wasn't until I changed to Asian studies that my advisors were good. And it's probably because it was the smallest college on campus, so the advisors had less people to deal with. Oh, pre-calc was interesting. Yeah, I liked pre-calc. The unit circle haunts me. I don't even know what that means. Algebra, I hated algebra. I actually did not do well in algebra 1 in high school because we had algebra 1 and algebra 2. I did not do well in algebra 1 because my teacher just was terrible. She had a temper too. She was just, I did not like her. And then, so by the time I got to algebra 2, I still didn't understand algebra. My teacher was nicer, but I was just beyond the point of understanding algebra. I only had to take one math class in college, and it was basically the exact thing I took senior year of high school, which I was glad about because it was a GA who taught it, and he could not teach, so I just looked at my notes from high school and retaught myself everything. It was basically pre-calc. Yeah, I think that's kind of how it was for me too. Algebra was my fave. Oh my gosh, I hated it. Hated it. And everyone was all like, you're going to have to know this in real life. Never in my life, I don't think, have I ever used algebra. I have never needed to find X or Y or anything. So they lied. They all lied to us. I liked algebra and geometry, but geometry more. I only did well in math in high school because I got lucky with the teachers. That's fair. I had a really, really, really good math teacher for geometry and pre-calc. It was the same teacher. She was amazing. Pretty sure my mom just marked me as passing algebra in high school since I was homeschooled because I did not remember actually finishing or understanding it at all. Aw. I know. I definitely had a lot of help with some of my subjects. We had algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, then math analysis, which is, yeah, I think that's what we had too. We had algebra 1, then geometry. Yes, then algebra 2 was junior year, and then I took advanced math, which was basically pre-calc, my senior year of high school, which I think counted towards college. I think maybe that's why I only had to take one math class in college. Yeah, the only times I use math are for like cooking. Exactly. Like measuring cups and stuff. Even then I still have to look things up because I don't remember fractions. Yep. Yeah, fractions are so hard. I use stats all the time, but I rarely use other maths. I mean, I use like basic math in my day-to-day, like, counting weeks. But that's about it. That's about it. All right, I'm going to take a drink. We're going to continue. We're going to read the next chapter. And then I think I might take a break in between that chapter because then we'll be halfway, which I think will be a good pausing point. But we're still going to finish the book today. So, are we ready for chapter 17? Oh my goodness. Hang on. My throat. Too much reading. Just kidding. All right, let's try this again. Chapter 17, Away. At 3:20, Dune took his pillowcase pack, left the school by the back door, and started up Pibb Street. He went fast. The lights had gone out for a few minutes just before 3, and he was nervous about being outside. He planned to take the long way to the pipeworks, out at the very edge of the city, to avoid any guards that might still be looking for him. He was filled with dread about Lena. He wouldn't know what had happened to her until he got to the pipeworks, and she either showed up or didn't. All he could do now was run. He raced down Knack Street. It was strange to be out in the city with the streets so utterly deserted. Without the people passing back and forth, the streets seemed wider and darker. Nothing moved but himself, his shadow, and his fleeting reflection in shop windows he passed. In Selverton Square, he saw a kiosk where the poster with his and Lena's names on it had been pinned up. Everyone in the city must have seen these posters by now. He was famous, he thought wryly, but not in the way he'd wanted. There would be no glorious moment on the Gathering Hall steps after all. Instead of making his father proud, he would cause him dreadful worry. This thought made him so sad that his knees felt suddenly wobbly. How could he just vanish without a word? But it was too late now. He couldn't go back. If only there was some way to send him a message, and in a moment he realized there was. He stopped, fished in his pack for the paper and pencil he'd brought, and scribbled on it. "Father, we found the way out. It was in the pipeworks after all. You will know about it tomorrow. Love, Dune." He folded this in quarters, wrote "Deliver to Loris Harrow" in big letters on the outside, and pinned it to the kiosk. There. That was the best he could do. He would have to trust that someone would deliver it. In the distance, he heard the faint sound of the singing. He listened. It was the song of the river just ending. Far below, like the blood of the earth, from the center of nowhere rushing forth, he sang under his breath. Like everyone in Ember, he knew the words of the 3 songs by heart. He sang along softly with the faraway singers. Making the light for the lamps of Ember, older than anyone can remember. Faster than anything anyone knows. The river comes and the river goes. Up Rim Street, now to River Road. He was halfway there. The singers were starting on the Song of Darkness. It was his favorite, with its powerful, deep harmonies. He was a little sorry to be missing it. He went up the Pot Street side of empty River Road Square, where another poster hung crookedly on the kiosk, and he was headed toward North Street when suddenly the lights flickered and went out. He jolted to a stop. Stand still and wait. That was his automatic response. In the distance, he heard a dip in the sound of the singing, some startled voices breaking the flow, but then the song rose again, defying the darkness. For a moment, all thoughts vanished from Dune's mind. There was nothing but the fearless words of the song. Black as sleep and deep as dreaming. Darkness like an endless night. Yet within the streets of Ember, bright and bravely shines our light. He sang, standing still in the blackness. When the song ended, he waited. The lights would surely come back soon. For a few minutes there was silence, and then, far away but piercingly clear, he heard a scream. More screams and shouts followed. The sounds of panic. He felt the panic himself, like a hand taking hold of him, making him want to leap up and fling himself against the dark. But suddenly, with a flash of joy, he remembered. He didn't have to wait for the lights to come back on. He had what no citizen of Ember had ever seen before, a way to see in the dark. He set his pack down, untied the knot at the top, and groped around inside until he felt the candle. Down in a corner, he found the little pocket of matches. He scraped a match against the pavement and it flared up instantly. He held the flame to the string on the candle, and the string began to burn. He had a light. He had the only light in the entire city. The candle didn't cast its light very far, but it was enough to see at least the pavement in front of him. He went slowly along Pot Street, then turned left on North Street. At the end of the street was the wall of the Pipeworks office. When he got to the Pipeworks entrance, no one was there. A little cloud of moths came to flutter around the flame of his candle, but otherwise nothing moved in Plumber Square. There was nothing to do but wait. Dune blew the candle out. He didn't want to use up all its light in case the light stayed off a long time, and squatted down on the pavement, setting down his bundle and leaning against one of the big trash cans. He waited, listening to the distant shouts, and at last the lights blinked again, and came on. Lena was nowhere in sight. If the guards had found her and taken her, but Dune preferred not to think about that yet. He would wait for a while. She would have been delayed by the blackout if she was on her way. He couldn't see the clock tower from here, but it was probably not quite 4 o'clock. What if she didn't come? The singing was over, the people were dispersing throughout the city, and the guards, no doubt, would soon resume their search for him. Dune clasped his arms together and pressed them hard against his stomach, trying to stop the queasy fluttering. If she didn't come, Dune had 2 choices. He could stay in the city and do what he could to save Lena, or he could go in the boat by himself and hope Lena could somehow free herself and tell the people of Ember about the way out. He didn't like either of these plans. He wanted to go down the river, and he wanted to go with Lena. Dune stood up and hoisted his sack again. He was too restless to keep sitting. He walked down to Gapry Street and looked in both directions. Not a single person was in sight. He walked up Plumber Street, thinking that perhaps Lena was coming by way of the city's edge, as he had, to avoid being seen. But no one was there. He didn't even see anyone when he went past Subling Street to the very end of the city. He had to decide what to do. He went and stood in the doorway of the Pipeworks. Think, he said to himself, think. He was not even sure he could make the river journey by himself. How would he get the boat into the water? Could he lift it up without help? On the other hand, how could he help Lena if she was in the hands of the mayor's guards? What could he possibly do that would not just get himself caught too? He felt sick. His hands were cold. He stepped out of the doorway and scanned the square once again. Nothing moved but the moths around the lights. And then, down Gapry Street, Lena came running. She came slantwise across the square, and he dashed to meet her. She was hugging a bundle to her chest. "I've come, I'm here, I almost didn't make it," she said, breathing so hard she could barely talk. "And look." She folded back the blanket of her bundle. Dune saw a curl of brown hair and 2 wide, frightened eyes. "I brought Poppy." Dune was so glad to see Lena that he didn't mind at all that Poppy was coming with them, making a risky journey even riskier. Relief and excitement flooded through him. They were going. They were going. "Okay," he said. "Come on." But with his borrowed key, he opened the Pipeworks door and hurried past the yellow slickers on their hooks and the lines of rubber boots. Dune dashed into the Pipeworks office long enough to replace the key on its hook, and then they pulled open the stairway door and started down. Lena stepped slowly because of Poppy, and Poppy clung to her neck, unusually quiet, sensing the strangeness and importance of what was happening. At the bottom of the stairs, they came out into the main tunnel and walked down the path to the west until they came to the marked rock. "How are we going to get Poppy down here?" asked Dune. Lena said, "I'll fasten her to my chest." Setting Poppy down, Lena took off the coat and the sweater she was wearing. With Dune's help, she made her sweater into a sling for Poppy, tying its sleeves behind her neck. Then she put her coat back on and buttoned it up. Dune looked doubtfully at this bulky arrangement. "Will you be able to climb down, carrying her like that? Will you be able to reach around her and hold on to the rungs?" "Yes," said Lena. Now that she had Poppy with her, she felt brave again. She could do whatever she needed to. Dune went down first. Lena followed. Stay very still, Poppy, she said. Don't squirm. Poppy did stay still, but even so, it was not easy going down the ladder with her extra weight. Lena's arms were just long enough to reach past Poppy and hold onto the ladder. She descended very slowly. When she got to the ledge, she stepped sideways, gripped the hand Dune held out for her, and with a deep breath of relief, came into the entryway. They walked to the back of the entry hall, and Dune opened the steel panel and took out the key. He slid aside the door to the room where the single boat was, and they went in. Dune took his candle from his sack and lit it. Lena unwrapped Poppy and sat her down at the back of the room. Don't move from there, she said. Poppy put her thumb in her mouth, and Dune and Lena set to work. Dune's sack went into the pointed end of the boat, which they decided must be the front. They put the boxes of candles and matches into the rear of the boat. It was clear that they'd been designed to go there. They fit snugly. The poles labeled paddles were a mystery. Lena thought maybe they were weapons, meant for fending off hostile creatures. Dune thought they might fit across the boat somehow to make railings to brace yourself against, but he couldn't get them to work in this way. Finally, they decided to just leave the paddles in the bottom of the boat and figure out what they were for as they went along. Dune dripped a bit of wax on the floor and stood his candle up in it so he'd have both his hands free. Let's see if we can lift the boat, he said. With Dune at the rear and Lena at the front, they found they could lift the boat with ease. It was amazingly light, even with the boxes and pack inside. They set it down again. The next step was to get it in the water somehow, and then get in it themselves. We can't just drop it in, said Lena. The river would just grab it right away. That must be what the ropes are for, said Dune. We lower it in by holding onto the ropes, and tie the ropes to something to keep it from moving. To what? They must have a peg or something in the wall to tie it to. Dune went back out to the ledge of the river and got down on his knees. Leaning over, he felt with one hand along the bank below. At first, there was only smooth, slippery rock. He moved his hands slowly back and forth, up and down. River water splashed against his fingers. At last, he felt something. A metal rod attached to the river wall, like the rungs of the ladder they'd climbed down. I found it, he called. He got up again and went back to the boat room. Let's carry the boat out, he said. He and Lena lifted it and, taking small steps, moved it forward. As they went out the door, Poppy began to wail. Don't cry, Lena called to her. Stay right there. We'll be back in a second. They carried the boat right to the edge of the water and set it down carefully, its front end pointing downstream. Dune knelt again, feeling for the metal rod. Hand me the end of the rope, he said. Which rope? Lena thought for a second. She realized it had to be the one attached to the side of the boat nearest her. That would be the side closest to the riverbank when they put the boat in. She uncoiled the rope, ran it around the boat, and handed its end down to Dune, who laid on his stomach with his head hanging over the edge and knotted the rope to the metal rung in the wall. He got to his feet again, wiping water from his face. Now, Dune said, we can put the boat in the water. Another wail came from the boat room. I'm coming, Lena called, and dashed back for Poppy. She hoisted her up and spoke into her ear, in the voice she used for announcing an exciting game. We're going on an adventure, Poppy. We're going for a ride in the water. It'll be fun, sweetie, you'll see. She blew out the candle Dune had left and carried Poppy to the river's edge. Are we ready? Said Dune. I guess we are. Goodbye to Ember, Lena thought. Goodbye to everyone. Goodbye to everything. For a second, a picture of herself arriving in the bright city of her dreams flashed into her mind, and then it faded and was gone. She had no idea what lay ahead. She set Poppy down against the wall of the entry passage. Sit here, she told her. Don't move until I tell you to. Poppy sat, her eyes wide, her plump legs sticking out in front of her. Lena took hold of the rope at the rear end of the boat. Dune took hold of the rope at the front. They heaved the boat up and stretched sideways to swing it out over the water. It tipped alarmingly from side to side. Let it down, yelled Lena. They both let the rope slide through their hands, and the boat fell and hit the water with a slap. It bounced and rocked and pulled against its tether, but Dune's knot held. The boat stayed in place, waiting for them. "Here I go," Dune cried. He bent over, gripped the rim of the boat with one hand, turned backward, and stepped in. The boat tipped sideways under his weight. Dune staggered a step and then found his balance. "All right," he yelled. "Hand me Poppy." Lena lifted Poppy, who began to howl and kick at the sight of the bucking boat and the churning water. But Dune's arms were right there, and Lena thrust her into them. A second later, she jumped in herself, and then all three of them were tossed to the floor of the boat by its violent rocking. Dune managed to get to his feet. He hauled on the rope that held the boat to the bank until he was close enough to reach the knot. He struggled with it. Water splashed into his face. He yanked at the knot, loosened it, pulled the rope free, and the boat shot forward. End of chapter 17. All right, so we have 3 chapters left. We are very close to the end of this book. Heck yes. I'll message you whenever I need fraction help. Oh my goodness, give me all the fractions. Coco, you just, don't take this the wrong way, but you love all the things that nobody else does, and I love that for you. Car, welcome in. Happy Tuesday. How are you doing? Welcome on in. Butt Spot making his appearance. You added nothing to the conversation. Disappointed. I know, right? Disappointment. But hey. They are going on adventure. I really do for some reason. Aaron did a Nancy Tears today and everyone was hating on my faves. I feel like I do too, though. Like, I definitely hate on people's favorites with Nancy's too, except for like a couple of my favorites. Most people disagree with me, I feel like. I don't know what it is. Okay, we've been going for almost 2 hours. We still have 3 chapters to go. We are going to finish today, but I'm going to take a quick break. I'm just going to go use the bathroom, maybe grab a little snack, and then we'll be right back to reading. The dead hate was strong. Aw, see, I agree with that one. But friends, please take this time to grab a drink, grab a snack yourself, go use the bathroom, take your meds, open a window, do what you gotta do, stretch, and I will catch you in just a few minutes. Car, enjoy your lurk, and I will see you all when I get back. And we back. I just need to put my gloves back on. Oh, dropped one. No one appreciates Creature of Kapu Cave like I do. The only things I like about Creature of Kapu Cave are the snow cones and the shell searching. Everything else, oh, and the Wiki Tiki song. That's it. The whole game can just nope. Honestly, probably agree with that, though the Frost puzzle is the main reason why I don't like it. See, I don't mind the Frost puzzle. I don't mind it. But like just the game in general is just kind of boring to me. If the Frost puzzle wasn't so painful, I'd probably be higher. I found so many diamonds in my Stardew save. What is this? Welcome back. Thank you for the welcome backs. Yeah, Nancy Drew tier lists are so fun. I did one a while back as well. It might be on my YouTube by now. I'm not sure. A wiki-tiki. Oahu. Waiahi. I have that as one of my alerts, actually. I think it's the donation alert. But I just love that song. It's so good. It's so good. Bum, bum, bum. Let me see really quickly. Okay. So, are we ready to jump back in and see what happened when they got in their boat? We're so close to finishing. I'm so excited. So here is chapter 18, Where the River Goes. For a second, Lena saw the banks of the river streak by. Ahead was the opening of the tunnel like an enormous mouth. They plunged into it and left the light of the pipeworks behind. In complete darkness, the boat pitched and rolled, and Lena, in the bottom of it, banged from side to side, gripping Poppy with one arm and grabbing with the other hand for anything to hold on to. Dune slid into her, and she slid into the boxes. Poppy was shrieking wildly. "Dune!" Lena shouted, and he shouted back, "Hold on, hold on!" But she kept losing her grip on the edge of the boat and being flung sideways. She was terrified that Poppy would slam into the metal bench or be torn from her arms and tossed into the river. The boat hit something and shuddered, then raced on. It felt like being swallowed, this rushing through the dark, with the river roaring like 1,000 voices. Lena's legs were tangled with Dune's, and Poppy's arms were so tight around her neck that she could hardly breathe. But it was the dark that was the most terrible, going so fast into the dark. She closed her eyes. If they were going to smash into a wall or plunge into a bottomless hole, there was nothing she could do about it. All she could do was hold tight to Poppy. She did that for what seemed a long time. And then at last the current slowed, and the boat stopped thrashing about so wildly. Lena managed to sit up, and she felt Dune moving too. Poppy's shrieks turned to whimpers. The darkness was still complete, but Lena sensed space above and around her. Where were they? She had to see. "Dune," she said, "are you all right? Can you find us a candle?" "I'll try," Dune said. She felt him scramble past her to the back of the boat, and she heard a scrape as he pulled a box out from its place under the bench. "Can't find the latch," Dune said. Then a second later, "There, I've got it. This is the matches, so this one must be candles." More scraping and banging. The boat lurched. Lena slid forward. Dune slid too, and slammed into her back. He gave a yell of rage. "Drop the match!" As I drop my bookmark. "Hold on, I almost had it." Long seconds of scrambling and clattering. Then a light flared up, and Dune's shadowed face appeared above it. He touched the match to a candle, and the light grew steadier. It was only a small flame, but it cast glints of light on the tunnel walls and the silky surface of the water. The tunnel had an arched ceiling. Lena saw, like the tunnels of the pipeworks, but it was much wider than those tunnels. The river ran through it like a moving road. "Can you light another?" Lena asked. Dune nodded and turned back to the boxes, but once again the boat struck something, causing a spray of water to slap into them and put the candle out. It was several minutes before Dune managed to light it again, and more before he finally had two burning at once. He jammed one of them into a space between the bench and the side of the boat, and he held the other in his hand. His hair was flattened against his forehead and dripping. His brown jacket was torn at the shoulder. "That's better," he said. It was better. Not only did they have light to see by, but the current was slower, and the boat sailed more smoothly. Lena was able to unwrap Poppy from her neck and look around. Ahead, she could see the tunnel curved. The boat swung into the curve, banged against the wall, straightened itself, and sped on. "Hand me a candle, too," she said. Dune gave Lena the candle he was holding and lit another. They found places to wedge all three candles into the frame of the boat so that they could keep their hands free. For a while, they rushed along almost silently, the river having become nearly as smooth as a sheet of glass. Then, suddenly, the current slowed even more, and the tunnel opened out. "We've come into a room," said Lena. Far overhead arced a vaulted ceiling. Columns of rock hung down from it, and columns of rock rose from the water, too, making long shadows that turned and mingled as the boat floated among them. They glimmered in the candlelight, pink and pale green and silver. Their strange, lumpy shapes looked like something soft that had frozen, like towers of mashed potatoes, Lena thought, that had hardened to stone. Now and then the boat bumped into one of these columns, and they found that they could use a paddle to knock themselves free again. In this way, they crossed the room to the other side, where again the passage narrowed and the current ran faster. Much faster. It was as if the boat were being pulled forward by a powerful hand. The water grew rough again, and splashes of spray put out their candles. Lena and Dune huddled in the bottom of the boat with Poppy between them, their arms clasped around her. They clenched their teeth and squeezed their eyes shut, and soon there was nothing in their minds but the roll and plunge of the boat, and nothing in their bodies but the effort not to be thrown out. Once the sound of the river rose to a crashing, and the front of the boat tipped downward, and they were pitched about so violently that it seemed that they were tumbling downstairs. But that only lasted a few seconds, and then they were streaming onward as before. Lena lost track of time, but a while later, maybe a few minutes, maybe an hour, the current slowed. The candles they stuck in their boat had been knocked overboard, so Dune lit new ones. They saw that they had come to another pool. There were no lumpy columns of rock here. Nothing interrupted the wide, flat surface of the water, which stretched out before them in the flickering light from their candles. The ceiling was smooth and only about 10 feet above their heads. The boat drifted as if it lost its sense of direction. Using a paddle to poke against the walls, Dune guided the boat around the edge of the pool. "I don't see where the river goes on," said Dune. "Do you?" "No," said Lena, "unless it's there, where it flows into that little gap." She pointed to a crack in the wall, only a few inches wide. "But the boat can't go there." "No, it's much too small." He pulled the boat forward. Their shadows moved with them along the wall. "Want to go home," said Poppy. "We're almost there," Lena told her. "We certainly can't go back the way we came," said Dune. "No," Lena dipped a hand in the water. It was so cold it sent an ache up her arm. "Could this be the end?" said Dune. His voice sounded flat in this closed-in space. "The end?" Lena felt a shiver of fear. "I mean the end of the trip," Dune said. "Maybe we're supposed to get out over there." He pointed to a wide expanse of rock that sloped back into the darkness on one side of the pool. Everywhere else, the walls rose straight out of the water. He pulled the boat over to the rock slope. The boat scraped bottom here. The water was shallow. "I'll get out and see if this goes anywhere," said Lena. "I want to be on solid ground again anyway." She handed Poppy to Dune and stood up. Holding a candle, she put one foot over the edge of the boat and into the cold water, and she waded ashore. The way did not look promising. The ground sloped upward and the ceiling sloped downward. As she went farther back, she had to stoop. A few yards in, a tumbled heap of rocks blocked the way. She inched around them, turning sideways to squeeze through the narrow space, and crept forward, holding the candle out in front of her. This goes nowhere, she thought. We're trapped. But a few steps farther along, she found she could stand up straight again, and a few steps beyond that, she turned a corner, and suddenly the candlelight shone on a wide path with a high ceiling and a smooth floor. Lena gave a wild shout. "Here it is," she cried. "It's here. There's a path." Dune's voice came from far away. She couldn't tell what he was saying. She made her way back toward the boat, and when it came in sight again, she yelled, "I found a path! A path!" Dune scrambled out and waded ashore, carrying Poppy. He set her down, and then he and Lena took hold of the boat and hauled it as far as they could up the slope of the rock. Poppy caught the excitement. She shouted gleefully, waving her fists like little clubs, and stomped around, glad to be on her feet again. She found a pebble and plunked it into the water, crowing happily at the splash it made. "I want to see the path," said Dune. "Go up that way," Lena told him, "and around the pile of rocks. I'll stay here and take things out of the boat." Dune went, taking another candle from the box in the boat. Lena sat Poppy down in a kind of nook formed by a roundish boulder and a hollow in the wall. "Don't move from here," she said. Then she pulled Dune's bundle from under the seat of the boat. It was damp, but not soaked. Maybe the food inside would still be all right. She was hungry all of a sudden. She'd had no dinner, she remembered. It must be the middle of the night by now, or maybe even morning again. She carried Dune's bundle ashore, along with the boxes of candles and matches, and as she set them down, Dune came back. His eyes were glowing, the reflection of a tiny flame dancing in each one. "That's it for sure," he said. "We've made it." Then his eyes shifted. "What's Poppy got?" he asked. Lena whipped around. In Poppy's hands was something dark and rectangular. It wasn't a stone. It was more like a packet of some kind. She was plucking and pulling at it. She lifted it to her mouth as if to tear it with her teeth, and Lena jumped to her feet. "Stop!" she shouted. Poppy startled, dropping the packet, and began to cry. "It's all right, never mind," Lena said, retrieving what Poppy had been about to chew on. "Come and have some dinner now. Hush. We're going to have dinner. I'm sure you're hungry." In the light of Dune's candle, with Poppy squirming on Lena's lap, they examined Poppy's find. The packet was wrapped in slippery greenish material and bound up with a strap. It wasn't wrapped very well. It looked as if someone had bundled it up quickly. The material was loose and blotched with whitish mold. Lena edged the strap off carefully. It was partly rotten. On the end of it was a small square buckle covered with rust. She folded back the wrapping. Dune took a sharp breath. "It's a book," he said. He moved his candle closer, and Lena opened the brown cover. The pages inside had faint blue lines across them, and someone had written along these lines in slanted black letters, which were not neat like the writing in the library books, but sprawling, as if the writer had been in a hurry. Dune ran his finger under the first line. It says, "They tell us we learn? No, leave. They tell us we leave tonight." He looked up and met Lena's eyes. "Leave?" Lena said. "From where?" "From Ember?" Dune asked. "Could someone have come this way before us? Or was it someone leaving the other city?" Dune looked down at the book again. He riffled through the pages. There were many of them. "Let's save it," said Lena. "We'll read it when we get to the new city." Dune nodded. "It'll be easier to see there." So Lena wrapped up the book again and tied it securely into Dune's bundle. They sat on the rock shelf for a while, eating the food Dune had brought. The candles wedged in the boat still shone steadily, and their light was cozy, like lamplight. It made golden shapes on the still surface of the pond. Dune said, "I saw the guards run after you. Tell me what happened." Lena told him. "And what about Poppy? What did you tell Mrs. Murdo?" "I told her the truth. At least, I hope it's the truth. I caught up with her on her way home after the singing. She'd seen the posters. She was terrified. But before she could ask questions, I just said she must give Poppy to me. I said I was taking her to safety, because that's what I suddenly realized on the roof of the gathering hall dune. I'd been thinking before that I had to leave Poppy because she'd be safe with Mrs. Murdo. But when the lights went out, I suddenly knew. There is no safety in Ember. Not for long. Not for anyone. I couldn't leave her behind. Whatever happens to us now, it's better than what's going to happen there. And did you explain all that to Mrs. Murdo? No, I was in a terrible hurry to get to the pipeworks and meet you. And I knew I had to go while there were still crowds in the street, so it would be harder for the guards to see me. I just said I was taking Poppy to safety. Mrs. Murdo handed her over, but she sort of sputtered. Where and why? And I said, you'll know in a few days. It's all right. And then I ran. So you gave her the note then, said Dune. The one meant for Clary. Oh, Lena stared at him stricken. The message to Clary. She put her hand in her pocket and pulled out the crumpled piece of paper. I forgot all about it. All I was thinking of was getting Poppy and getting to you. So no one knows about the room full of boats. Lena just shook her head, her eyes wide. How will we get back to tell them? We can't. Dune, said Lena. If we'd told people right away, even just a few people, if we hadn't decided to be grand and announce it at the singing. I know, said Dune, but we didn't. That's all. We didn't tell, and now no one knows. I did leave a message for my father, though. He told Lena about pinning his last message to the kiosk in Silverton Square. I said we'd found the way out and that it was in the pipeworks, but that's not much help. Clary has seen the instructions, Lena said. She knows they're in egress. She might find it, or she might not. There was nothing to be done about it, and so they put the supplies back into Dune's pillowcase and got ready to go. Lena used Dune's rope to make a leash for Poppy. She tied one end around Poppy's waist and the other around her own. She filled her pockets with packs of matches, and Dune put all the remaining candles in his sack, in case they arrived in the new city at night. He filled his bottle with river water, lit a candle for himself and one for Lena, and thus equipped, they left the boat behind and crept up the rocky shelf to the path. End of chapter 18. Whew, 2 chapters left, and now nobody knows. They forgot to leave the note that explained everything. Claps for chapter. Thank you for claps. Welcome back from ads. I don't think you missed anything too crazy. Let me go back. When we were growing up, my siblings and I would use the Wiki Tiki song on the trampoline as part of a game where one person would sit in the middle with their eyes closed while everyone else bounced around them, and then we'd say, Wiki Tiki, arise! And the middle person who tried to tag the others with their eyes still closed. That's so fun! I always wanted a trampoline. One of my best friends growing up had one, and we would always go on it at night and like watch the bats. I thought that was fun. Or we would like jump into the pool because she had a pool. Probably a bad idea having eyes closed while diving at people on a trampoline looking back, but we had fun with it. Yeah, right? To be young. To be young. The dark boat ride reminds me of the Pirates ride at Disney. My 3-year-old nephew sat on my lap and he locked his feet around my legs and tensed every muscle at the drop. Oh my gosh, I love that ride. But it always, always, always gets stuck while we're on it. Every time. Oh my gosh, but it's one of my favorites. Like, you just have to go on it every time you go. Everyone I knew who had a trampoline broke bones on there, so I never had the desire. Oh my gosh. And it's so funny because my friend who had one, she didn't have the one with like the net around it. It was just straight trampoline and air, and like you could just fly off and hurt yourself, but we never did. Like, I think the worst hurt that I got on the trampoline was I got the trampoline burn, which actually hurt really, really bad. It was like rug burn, but worse. So that was unfortunate, but I never like hurt myself on it, which was good. Yeah, don't ever get trampoline burn. It's really not a good time. It just stings so badly. Hi, Luna. Oh my goodness. Do you wanna come hang out while we read? Come here. Or not. That's that's fine too. No net for us, always trampoline burn and falling off, but no broken bones. Yeah, that's kind of how ours was too. What? Do you want to come up or not? Do or do not. There is no try. Come on. Come on. Up. Up. She's still deciding. She can't decide. Come on. There we go. All right, we now have a Luna. We now have a Luna in the lap. She probably won't stay for long because she knows when I'm streaming. And she doesn't like to hang out while we're streaming, huh? But she's here. Oh my god, she just turned my volume all the way up, and that was a very loud Fifi laugh. That was an extremely loud Fifi laugh. Thank you, Luna. I needed to hear that so loudly. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, so she's going to be in my lap while we read the next chapter. There's only 2 more. Are you guys ready? We're almost at the end. All right. Luna, you need to be good if you're sitting in my lap. No chewing on cords, okay? All right, one more drink. And I think we are ready for chapter 19, A World of Light. As they squeezed past the rocks at the entrance to the path, Dune thought he saw the candlelight glance off a shiny place on the wall. He stopped to look, and when he saw what it was, he called out to Lena, who was a few steps ahead of him. "There's a notice." It was a framed sign, bolted to the stone, a printed sheet behind a piece of glass. Dampness had seeped under the glass and made splotches on the paper, but by holding their candles up close, they could still read it. "Welcome, refugees from Ember. This is the final stage of your journey. Be prepared for a climb that will take several hours. Fill your bottles with water from the river. We wish you good fortune. The Builders." "They're expecting us," said Lena. "Well, they wrote this a long time ago," Dune said. "The people who put it here must all be dead by now." "That's true, but they wished us good fortune. It makes me feel as if they're watching over us." "Yes, and maybe their great-great-great-grandchildren will be there to welcome us." Encouraged, they started up the path. Their candles made only a feeble glow, but they could tell that the path was quite wide. The ceiling was high over their heads. The path seemed to have been made for a great company of people. In some places, the ground beneath their feet was rutted in parallel grooves, as if a wheeled cart of some kind had been driven over it. After they had walked a while, they realized that they were moving in long zigzags. The path would go in one direction for some time, then turn sharply and go the opposite way. As they went along, they talked less and less. The path sloped relentlessly upward, and they needed their breath just for breathing. The only sound was the light pat-pat of their footsteps. Lena and Dune took turns carrying Poppy on their backs. She had gotten tired of walking very soon and cried to be picked up. Twice, they stopped and sat down to rest, leaning against the walls of the passage and taking drinks from Dune's bottle of water. "How many hours do you think we've been walking?" Lena asked. "I don't know," Dune said. "Maybe 2, maybe 3. We must be nearly there." They climbed on and on. Their first candles had long ago burned down to the last inch, as had their second candles. Finally, when their third ones were about halfway gone, Lena began to notice that the air smelled different. The cold, sharp-edged rock smell of the tunnel was changing to something softer, a strange, lovely smell. As they rounded a corner, a gust of the soft air swept past them, and their candles went out. Dune said, "I'll find a match." But Lena said, "No, wait, look." They were not in complete darkness. A faint haze of light shone in the passage ahead of them. "It's the lights of the city," breathed Lena. Lena set Poppy down. "Quick, Poppy," she said, and Poppy began to trot, keeping close to Lena's heels. The strange, lovely smell in the air grew stronger. The passage came to an end a few yards farther along, and before them was an opening like a great empty doorway. Without a word, Lena and Dune took hold of each other's hands, and Lena took hold of Poppy's. When they stood in the doorway and looked out, they saw no new city at all, but something infinitely stranger. A land vast and spacious beyond any of their dreams, filled with air that seemed to move, and lit by a shining silver circle hanging in an immense black sky. In front of their feet, the ground swept away in a long, gentle slope. It was not bare stone, as in Ember. Something soft covered it, like silvery hair, as high as their knees. Down the slope was a tumble of dark, rounded shapes, and then another slope rose beyond that. Way off into the distance, as far as they could see, the land lay in rolling swells, with clumps of shadow in low places between them. "Dune," cried Lena, "more lights." She pointed at the sky. He looked up and saw them, hundreds and hundreds of tiny flecks of light, strewn like spilled salt across the blackness. "Oh," he whispered. There was nothing else to say. The beauty of these lights made his breath stop in his throat. They took a few steps forward. Dune bent to feel the strands that grew out of the ground, almost higher than Poppy's head. They were cool and smooth and soft, and there was a dampness on them. "Breathe," said Lena. She opened her mouth and took in a long breath of air. Dune did the same. "It's sweet," he said. "So full of smells." They held their hands out to feel the long stems as they waded slowly through them. The air moved against their faces and in their hair. "Hear those sounds?" said Dune. A high, thin, chirruping sound came from somewhere nearby. It was repeated over and over like a question. "Yes," said Lena. "What could it be?" "Something alive, I think. Maybe some kind of bug?" "A bug that sings?" Lena turned to Dune. Her face was shadowy in the silver light. "It's so strange here, Dune, and so huge. But I'm not afraid." "No, I'm not either. It feels like a dream." "A dream, yes. Maybe that's why it feels familiar. I might have dreamed about this place." They walked until they came to where the dark shapes billowed up from the ground. These were plants, they discovered, taller than they were, with stems as hard and as thick as walls of houses, and leaves that spread out over their heads. On the slope beside these plants, they sat down. "Do you think there's a city here somewhere?" Lena asked, "or any people at all?" "I don't see any lights," Dune said, "even far off." "But with this silver lamp in the sky, maybe they don't need lights." Dune shook his head doubtfully. "People would need more light than this," he said. "How could you see well enough to work? How could you grow your food? It's a beautiful light, but not bright enough to live by." "Then what shall we do if there's no city and no people?" "I don't know. I don't know." Dune didn't feel like thinking. He was tired of figuring things out. He wanted to look at this new world and take in the scent of it and the feel of it and figure things out later. Lena felt the same way. She stopped asking questions, drew Poppy onto her lap, and gazed in silence at the glimmering landscape. After a while, she became aware that something strange was happening. Surely, when she had first sat down, the silver circle was just above the highest branch of the tall plant. Now the branch cut across it. As she watched, the circle sank very slowly down until it was hidden, except for a gleam of brightness behind the leaves. "It's moving," she said to Dune. "Yes." A little later, it seemed to her that her eyes were blurring. There was a fuzziness in the sky, especially around the edges. It took a while for her to realize what was making the fuzziness. "Light," she said. "I see it," said Dune. "It's getting brighter." The edge of the city turned gray, and then pale orange, and then deep fiery crimson. The land stood out against it, a long black rolling line. One spot along this line grew so bright they could hardly look at it. So bright it seemed to take a bite out of the land. It rose higher and higher until they could see that it was a fiery circle, first deep orange, then yellow, and too bright to look at any longer. The color seeped out of the sky and washed over the land. Light sparkled on the soft hair of the hills and shone through the lacy leaves as every shade of green sprang to life around them. They lifted their faces to the astonishing warmth. The sky arced over them, higher than they could have imagined, a pale, clear blue. Lena felt as though a lid had been on her all her life, had been lifted off. Light and air rushed through her, making a song like the songs of Ember, only it was a song of joy. She looked at Dune and saw that he was smiling and crying at the same time, and she realized that she was too. Everything around them was springing to life. A glorious racket came from the branches. Tweedling notes, peeps, burbles, high sharp calls. Bugs? Wondered Dune, imagining with awe the bugs that could make such sounds. But then he saw something fly from a cluster of leaves and swoop down low across the ground, making a clear, sweet call as it flew. "Did you see that?" he said to Lena, pointing. "And there's another one. And there. And there, and there, and there," repeated Poppy, leaping from Lena's lap and whirling around, pointing in every direction. The air was full of them now. They were much too large to be insects. One of them lit nearby on a stem. It looked at them with two bright black eyes, and opening its mouth, which was pointed like a thorn, sent forth a little trill. "It's speaking to us," said Dune. "What could it be?" Luna just shook her head. The little creature shifted its claw-like feet on the stem, flapped its brown wings, and trilled again. Then it leapt into the air and was gone. They leapt up too and threw themselves into exploration. The ground was alive with insects, so many that Dune just laughed in helpless wonder. Flowers bloomed among the green blades, and a stream ran at the foot of the hill. They roamed over green-coated slopes, running, sliding, calling out to each other with each new discovery, until they were exhausted. Then they sat down by the entrance to the path to eat what was left of their food. They untied Dune's bundle, and Lena suddenly cried out, "The book! We forgot about the book!" There it was, wrapped in its blotched green cloth. "Let's read it out loud while we eat," said Dune. Lena opened the fragile notebook and laid it on the ground in front of her. She picked up a carrot with one hand, and with the other she kept her place on the scribbled page. This is what she read. End of chapter 19. All right, so we have one chapter to go. And thank you so much for that follow. Welcome in, Celioness. I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, please let me know. If you're still here, welcome on in. Welcome to the Corner Crew. There's too much story left for only 2 chapters. I know. Well, luckily, we have 3 more books to the series. So we still have plenty of time for more adventure. And finding out what happens. So super excited. One more chapter. End book hype. Can't wait. Can't wait for you guys to see how this ends. And then we'll have to start the next book next week. Thank you for the claps. I'm so excited. So let me see how many pages are in this chapter. Okay. Not very many. Not a ton. And that's why there's still too much story left. So there can be more books. Exactly. All the story, all the books. So shall we finish? Are we ready to finish? My voice is getting a little tired, so I'm kind of excited for the end. Even though I really do love these streams, though. I think they're so cozy and so fun, and I just love reading with you guys. So thank you for those who hang out and chat and lurk and do your thing while we read together. And thank you also to those who have been listening to them on my YouTube. So thank you. I'm going on vacation at the end of next week, so hopefully I will not miss any reading and can enjoy the listening while relaxing. Oh, that sounds so nice. Vacations are so fun. I hope you're going somewhere wonderful. I love book streams. Me too. They're so relaxing and cozy, and just you can like do something while you're listening to them, or just like lay down and relax. I love it. I love it. So let's get ready. Also, Luna jumped down like forever ago. She did not stay long. Going to the beach for the first time in years. Oh my gosh, I love that. I hope is it still warm enough for the beach, or are you just going like just to be at the beach? Because that's totally fair. I actually went to the beach this year for the first time in a couple years, which was nice. But it's actually a lot cooler here now, so I would not. I mean, being at the beach anytime is great, but I like to be there when it's like hot, you know? It's supposed to be 80s, I think. Oh yeah, so that should still be nice. Yeah, it's a lot cooler here. I keep forgetting. It's nice and warm where you are. It's like low 60s, 50s here right now. So it's still, you know, you could still go to the beach, but it would be pretty chilly. I have beach everywhere, but I don't like it at all. So take it, please. Oh my gosh, Coco, I will take all the beach. It's still hot enough here to swim, but we're landlocked. I'm so jealous of the warmth that you guys have. That sucks that you're landlocked, though. I need to be by water, like at least within like some, you know, not too long. Like I'm not super near water where I am, but there is water within like an hour, I would say. Take it. It's fall. It shouldn't be 100 degrees. I feel that. I would love to trade. Aw. Yeah, I would love to trade colie. I mean, I don't want 100 degrees either. So I like a nice like 70, 75 degrees. That's like perfect. Anyway, well, no, I would say anywhere between like 60, 65 to 75 is like perfect. We're landlocked and it's but ugly. Oh, we do have a lot of green here, which is really nice. I do love all the green we have. But right now it's changing colors for fall, which is fun. I don't know how much swimming I'll be doing because I'm very big and can't breathe. Oh my goodness. But I will still enjoy the beach and walking and wading 100%. Oh my goodness. Yeah. When are you due, Summer? When are you due? It's got to be soon, right? Is it soon? What was that? You just breathing in my ear. We have one more chapter before the book's done. Okay? Then we can have dinner. I don't know. November 14th. Oh my gosh, that's going to come up so fast. Closest water to us would be like a 10-hour drive, and it's Texas and not a great beach from what I've heard. So not worth it. Plus, it's Texas. I'll be starting my last month at the beach. Oh, that sounds so nice. That sounds so nice. But I've heard that being pregnant in like hot weather is really not fun. I have heard that. Can't say I know, but I have heard that from many a people. You and Sarah are so close in due day. Aw. All right, I'm going to take one more drink of water, and then I think we're going to get ready to read the last chapter. Last chapter. Chapter 20, The Last Message. Sorry, there's a hair in my mouth. All the suspense. Okay. Friday. They tell us we leave tonight. I knew it would be soon. The training has been over for nearly a month now, but still it feels sudden. It feels like a shock. Why did I agree to this? I am an old woman, too tired to take up a new life. I wish now that I'd said no when they asked me. I've put everything I can into my one suitcase. clothes, shoes, a good wind-up clock, some soap, and an extra pair of glasses. Bring no books, they said, and no photographs. We have been told to say nothing, ever again, about the world we came from. But I'm going to take this notebook anyhow. I'm determined to write down what happens. Someday, someone may need to know. Saturday. I went to the train station yesterday evening, as they told me to, and got on the train they told me to take. It took us through Spring Valley, and I gazed out the window at the fields and houses of the place I was saying goodbye to, my home, and my family's home for generations. I rode for 2 hours until the train reached a station in the hills. When I arrived, they met me, 3 men in suits, and drove me to a large building, where they led me down a corridor and into a big room full of other people, all with suitcases, most with gray or white hair. Here we have been waiting now for more than an hour. They have spent years and years making this plan. It's supposed to ensure that no matter what happens, people won't disappear from the earth. Some say that will never happen anyhow. I'm not so sure. Disaster seems very close. Everything will be all right, they tell us, but only a few people believe them. Why, if it's going to be all right, do we see it getting worse every day? And of course, this plan is proof that they think the world is doomed. All the best scientists and engineers have pulled in to work on it. Extraordinary efforts have been made, efforts that would have done more good elsewhere. I think it's the wrong answer, but they asked me if I would go. I suppose because I've spent my life on a farm and I know about growing food. In spite of my doubts, I said yes. I'm not sure why. There are 100 of us, 50 men and 50 women. We are all at least 60 years old. There will be 100 babies, too. 2 babies for each pair of, quote, parents. I don't know yet which of these gentlemen I'll be matched with. We are all strangers to one another. They planned it that way. They said there would be fewer memories between us. They want us to forget everything about the lives we've led and the places we've lived. The babies must grow up with no knowledge of a world outside, so that they feel no sorrow for what they have lost. I hear some noises across the room. I think it's the babies arriving. Yep, here they come, each being carried by one of those gray-suited men. So many of them, so small, little scrunched-up faces, tiny fists waving. I must stop for now. They're going to pass them out. Later. We're traveling again, on a bus this time. It is night, I think, though it's hard to be sure because they've boarded up the windows of the bus from the outside. They don't want us to know where we're going. I have a baby on my lap, a girl. She has a bright pink face and no hair at all. Stanley, who sits next to me, holds a baby boy, with brown skin and a few tufts of black hair. Stanley and I are the keepers of these children. Our task is to raise them in this new place we're going to. By the time they are 20 or so, we'll be gone. They'll be on their own, making a new world. Stanley and I have named these children Star and Forest. Sunday. The buses have stopped, but they have not allowed us to get out. I can hear crickets singing and smell the grass, so we must be in the country, and it must be night. I am very tired. What kind of place can this be, safe from earthly catastrophes? All I can guess is that it must be underground. The thought fills me with dread. I'll try to sleep a little now. Later. There was no chance to sleep. They called us off the buses, and we stepped out into a landscape of rolling hills in full moonlight. That's the way we'll be going in, they told us, pointing to a dark opening in the hill we stood on. Form a line there, please. We did so. It was very quiet, except for the squalling of a few of the babies. If the others were like me, they were saying goodbye to the world. I reached down to touch the grass and breathed deeply to smell the earth. My eyes swept over the silver hills, and I thought of the animals prowling softly in the shadows or sleeping in their burrows, and the birds standing beneath the leaves of the trees, with their heads tucked under their wings. Last, I raised my eyes to the moon, which smiled down on us from a long, cold distance away. The moon will still be here when they come out, I thought. The moon and the hills, at least. The opening led us into a winding passage that ran steeply downhill for perhaps a mile. It was hard going for me. My legs are not strong anymore. We moved very slowly. The last part was the worst, a rocky slope where it was easy to miss your footing and slip. This led down to a pool. By the shore of the pool, our group of aged pioneers gathered. Motorboats were waiting here for us, equipped with lanterns. When it's time for people to leave this place, is this the way they will come? I asked our pilot, who had a kind face. He said yes. But how will they know there's a way out if no one tells them? I said. How will they know what to do? They're going to have instructions, said the pilot. They won't be able to get at the instructions until the time is right, but when they need them, the instructions will be there. But what if they don't find them? What if they never come out again? I think they will. People find a way through just about anything. That was all he would say. I'm writing these notes while our pilot loads the boat. I hope he doesn't notice. It ends there, said Lena, looking up. He must have noticed, said Dune, or she was afraid he would, so she decided to hide it instead of taking it with her. She must have hoped someone would find it. Just as we did, he pondered. But we might not have if it hadn't been for Poppy. No, and we wouldn't have known that we came from here. The fiery circle had moved up in the sky now, and the air was so warm that they took off their coats. Absently, Dune dug his finger into the ground, which was soft and crumbly. But what was the disaster that happened in this place, he said. It doesn't look ruined to me. It must have happened a long, long time ago, said Lena. I wonder if people still live here. They sat looking out over the hills, thinking of the woman who had written in the notebook. What had her city been like, Lena wondered. Like Ember in some way, she imagined. A city with trouble, where people argued over solutions. A dying city. But it was hard to picture a city like Ember here in this bright, beautiful place. How could anyone have allowed such a place to be harmed? What do we do now? Asked Lena. She wrapped the notebook in its covering again and set it aside. We can't go back up the river and tell them all to come here. No, we could never make a boat go against the current. Are we here alone then? Forever? Maybe there's another way in, some way that lets you walk down to Ember. Or maybe there's another river that runs the other way. We have candles now. We could cross the unknown regions if we found a way to get there. This was the only plan they had come up with. So, all day long, they searched for another way in. Under the brow of the hill, they found a hole where a stream wandered into the dark. The water was good to drink, but the hole was far too small for them to fit through. There were gullies full of shrubs, and Lena and Dune crawled among the leaves and prickly branches, but found no openings. Bugs buzzed around their ankles and past their eyes. Brown earth stained their hands, and pebbles got into their shoes. Their thick, dark, shabby clothes got all full of prickly things, and since they were much too hot anyhow, they took most of them off. They had never felt such warmth against their skin and such soft air. When the bright circle was at the top of the sky, they sat for a while in the shade of one of the tall plants on the side of the hill, in a place where the thick brush gave way to a clearing. Poppy went to sleep, but Lena and Dune sat looking out over the land. Green was everywhere, in different shades, like a huge, brilliant, gorgeous version of the overlapping carpets back in the rooms of Ember. Far away, Lena saw a narrow gray line curving like a pencil stroke across a sweep of green. She pointed this out to Dune, and both of them squinted hard at it, but it was too far away to see clearly. Could it be a road? Said Lena. It could, said Dune. Maybe there are people here after all. I hope so, said Dune. There's so much I want to know. They were still gazing at the far-off bit of gray when they heard something moving in the brush nearby. Leaves rustled. There was a scraping, shuffling sound. They stiffened and held their breath. The shuffling paused, then started up again. Was it a person? Should they call out? But before they could decide what to do, a creature stepped into the clearing. It was about the same size as Poppy, only lower to the ground because it walked on 4 legs instead of 2. Its fur was a deep rust red. Its face was a long triangle, its ears stood up in points, and its black eyes shone. It trotted forward a few steps, absorbed in its own business. Behind it floated a thick, soft-looking tail. All at once, it saw them and stopped. Lena and Dune stayed absolutely still. So did the creature. Then it took a step toward them, paused, tilted its head a little as if to get a better look, and took another step. They could see the sheen of its fur and the glint of light in its eyes. For a long moment, they stayed like this, frozen, staring at one another. Then, unhurriedly, the creature moved away. It pushed its nose among the leaves on the ground, wandering back toward the bushes, and when it raised its head again, they saw that it was holding something in its white teeth, something round and purplish. With a last glance at them, it leapt toward the bushes, its tail sailing, and disappeared. Lena let out her breath and turned to look at Dune, whose mouth was open in astonishment. His voice shaky, he said, "That was the most wonderful thing I have ever seen, ever, in my whole life." "Yes, and it saw us," Dune said, and Lena nodded. They both felt it. They had been seen. The creature was utterly strange, not like anything they had ever known, and yet when it looked at them, some kind of recognition passed between them. "I know now," said Dune. "This is the world we belong in." A few minutes later, Poppy woke up and made fretful noises, and Lena gave her the last of the peas in Dune's pack. "What was that, do you think, in the creature's mouth?" she asked. "Would it be something we could eat? A fruit of some kind? It looked like the pictures of peaches on cans, except for the color." They got up and poked around, and soon they came across a plant whose branches were laden with purple fruits, about the size of small beets, only softer. Dune picked one and cut it open with his knife. There was a stone inside. Red juice ran out over his hands. Cautiously, he touched his tongue to it. "Sweet," he said. "If the creature can eat it, maybe we can too," said Lena. "Shall we?" They did. Nothing had ever tasted better. Lena cut the stones out and gave the chunks of the fruit to Poppy. Juice ran down their chins. When they had eaten 5 or 6 apiece, they licked their sticky fingers clean and started to explore again. They went higher up the slope they were on, wading through flowers as high as their waists, and near the top they came upon a kind of dent in the ground, as if a bit of the earth had caved in. They walked down into it, and at the end of the dent they found a crack about as tall as a person, but not nearly as wide as a door. Lena edged through it sideways and discovered a narrow tunnel. "Send Poppy through," she called back to Dune, "and come yourself." But it was dark inside, and Dune had to go back to where he'd left his pack to get a candle. By candlelight, they crept along until they came to a place where the tunnel ended abruptly. But it ended not with a wall, but with a sudden huge nothingness that made them gasp and step back. A few feet beyond their shoes was a sheer, dizzying drop. They looked out into a cave so enormous that it seemed almost as big as the world outside. Far down at the bottom shone a cluster of lights. "It's Ember," Lena whispered. They could see the tiny bright streets crossing each other, and the squares, little chips of light, and the dark tops of buildings. Just beyond the edges was the immense darkness. "Oh, our city, Dune. Our city is at the bottom of a hole." She gazed down through the gulf, and all of what she had believed about the world began to slowly break apart. "We were underground," she said. "Not just the pipeworks, everything." She could hardly make sense of what she was saying. Dune crouched on his hands and knees, looking over the edge. He squinted, trying to see minute specks that might be people. "What's happening there, I wonder? Could they hear us if we shouted? I don't think so. We're much too far up." "Maybe if they looked into the sky, they'd see our candle," said Lena. "But no, I guess they wouldn't. The street lamps would be too bright." "Somehow, we have to get word to them," said Dune. And that was when the idea came to Lena. "Our message," she cried. We could send our message. And they did. From her pocket, Lena took the message that Dune had written, the one that was supposed to have gone to Clary, explaining everything. In small writing, they squeezed in this note at the top. Dear people of Ember, we came down the river from the pipeworks and found the way to another place. It is green here and very big. Light comes from the sky. You must follow the instructions in this message and come on the river. Bring food with you. Come as quickly as you can. Lena Mayfleet and Dune Harrow. They wrapped the message in Dune's shirt and put a rock inside it. Then they stood in a row at the edge of the chasm, Dune in the middle holding Poppy's hand and Lena's. Lena took aim at the heart of the city far beneath her feet. With all her strength, she cast the message into the darkness, and they watched as it plunged down and down. Mrs. Murdo, walking even more briskly than usual to keep her spirits up, was crossing Harkin Square when something fell to the pavement just in front of her with a terrific thump. How extraordinary, she thought, bending to pick it up. It was a sort of bundle. She began to untie it. End of chapter 20, and end of the city of Ember.